Welcome to Hospo Health. My name's Charles Badenack. I'm a financial advisor with Main Street Financial Solutions in Hobart, and I'm joined by my colleague Michael J. Fox. Thanks for joining me, Michael.
No worries.
Now, today we're going to be talking about property. Very topical given the recent interest rate rises and the record rises in property prices over the last sort of 5 years or so. Now, the world is very different than what it was before. Back when I bought my first house, Michael, back in 2001, which seems like a long time ago, but I bought a place in Sandy Bay for $200,000. And at the time, my wife and my combined income was $120,000. So today, that combined salary would probably be about $150,000, but the property would be worth about $1 million. So no matter what anyone tells you, the world is different, it is harder. Now, Michael, you've just gone through that process as a homeowner. Do you want to perhaps just talk through some of the lessons which you've learned through that process?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's quite a few things to keep in mind. One's just make sure you get your ducks in a row, early, because property sales we're seeing at the moment, obviously with the market the way it's been over the last few years, generally kind of owners are expecting or vendors are expecting, offers to be made, that day or the following week. So generally get your ducks in a row and know how much you can borrow, what kind of deposit you'd need, what the repayments will be. Also chatting to some professional help where need be. So speaking to a broker, if it's for an investment purposes, potentially speaking to your accountant, and just making sure that you've done your research and you're ready. There's also, on the topic of research, there is a lot of free and readily available resources. You can essentially get the same information as a lot of real estate agents these days. There's On the House, realestate.com, where you can see
There's All Homes, another one, isn't it?
Yeah, there's quite a few. You can look at what the property previously sold for, what neighbouring properties are being rented for, so you can get a pretty good understanding of what your property may be.
So back in the old days, like in the 90s, the only way you could actually access that was through the Land Titles Office. So working as a young lawyer in those days, I used to have a friend that would give me that information, but it was publicly available, it was harder to get, and now this has empowered the consumer, hasn't it? So you can actually have as much information at your fingertips as effectively what a real estate agent can. Okay?
It has, yeah.
And I suppose one of the common themes that we often get is that people will say, look, I'm saving up, I'm going to wait till prices stop rising. But unfortunately, one of the problems with that is that the elevator keeps going up. And I've got this sort of theory that with all of the issues happening in the northern hemisphere, it suddenly makes the southern hemisphere seem a lot more attractive. And in the southern hemisphere, there are probably really two standout places to live, probably Australia and New Zealand. And I'd argue that Tassie is one of the better options. So, the secret's out. So I think that when people talk about our property prices overvalued in a Hobart sense, well, if we were just Hobart people buying Hobart properties, then you could probably mount a pretty reasonable argument for that. But if you consider that a lot of people that are buying Tasmanian property are from interstate or from overseas, it's potentially not overvalued. So, and if we look at the elevator keep going up, if you don't jump on the elevator, then you run the risk, and we've seen this with a lot of people as they approach retirement. If you're renting for a long period of time, you don't control your destiny. So, I've found home ownership very beneficial to be able to do a whole lot of other things, and you've probably the same, Michael.
Yeah, definitely.
And so as a recent purchaser, Michael, what have you found the main drivers of property prices?
So I suppose there's a few factors to consider. One's obviously, like a lot of these types of investment, supply and demand. So we're seeing a lot of demand coming into Hobart and into Tasmania, whether it's mainland buyers, first home buyers, young professionals, all these sorts of things. And there's not a whole lot of supply, so the supply hasn't really kept up with demand. So that's where property prices.
When we talk, it's too much of a hassle often to sell, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So even you see,
too stressful.
Yeah, so even you see retirees staying at home for far longer than before. So that's also kind of pulling back on the supply. And also is access to capital. So over the last if we look at the last 3 to 4 years, the cash rate, the interest rates have been at a historic low than they kind of ever have been in Australia. So people will get really cheap access to capital. We're seeing, obviously moving forward, interest rates have started to increase, so there might be a bit of a change there, but it's still quite low comparative to when your first mortgage was a couple of years ago.
It sounds like an exorbitant figure. Was 7.5%, which was quite reasonable compared to what it was the 10 years prior to that. But yeah, one of the things which I've noticed at a personal level is that the banks, the hoops you have to jump through now, they're quite incredible. So I had a redraw facility on my loan, and so I thought I could just go and redraw down, no problem. But actually, they stopped the redraw facility, and I actually have to apply. I had to get a valuation again of the property, and then had to provide proof of my income of 2 weeks' pay. Now they actually want a group certificate. So in the past, you could just use the redraw facility without any issue, but it's a really different game now. So it's important that you sort of cross your T's and dot your I's when it comes to dealing with any financial institution now.
Yeah, definitely.
And I suppose there are a couple of other things that I also think are driving property price. I think the resources boom's one, which has caused a lot of fly-in, fly-out workers. So a lot of people with higher disposable income, so they're buying sort of second properties. It's also inflated place in communities that are where the resources are. They've gone up as well. Yeah, infrastructure's gone up. So even if we look in Hobart, for example, so the Brighton bypass, for example, has opened up that corridor. There's New Norfolk, there's the land tracks down at sort of Margate, all of those areas that have that were traditionally sort of too far away, but now with highways and stuff, it's improved a lot. We also have got a lot of, or quite a few clients that actually use Tassie as a bolt hole, don't they? So they actually have we've got one that's got a shack at Dodgers Ferry, one at Primrose, one at Orford, and they actually fly in to Hobart Airport, collect their car from the long-term park, and then go up to the shack for the weekend. Now that's actually a quicker option often than going away to some of the Victorian sort of seaside towns with the traffic and things. So that's increasing as well. And I suppose the ageing population, I mean, people like the buzz of Hobart versus the buzz of Sydney, Melbourne nowadays, don't they, Mike?
Yep.
Found
yeah,
that
definitely.
as well. Now, one of the things we have an active interest in is thinking outside the square when it comes to property. Do you want to perhaps touch on that for a bit?
Yep. Yeah, sure. So I suppose gone are the days where you can kind of buy your first dream home, straight off the bat, and it might be a home that's appropriate for children and that sort of thing. So we're seeing a lot of people try to do things outside the square to firstly get into the market, and then potentially also try and get ahead. So there's a common one's what's called rent vesting, where you buy an investment property somewhere else other than you live, and then you continue to live, whether it's close to work in the city or the place that's desirable to you. Another common one that we're seeing a lot is actually using the bank of mum and dad, whether it's having them as a guarantor on your loan, or having an early inheritance to get into the market, or just borrowing some funds for a deposit.
Because I think with the borrowing funds for a deposit, that's an interesting one, because anyone with a portfolio will have a part of your money's invested defensively. So there'll always be sort of a term deposit, an income securities, a fixed interest fund component of your portfolio. So that we're seeing a lot of people doing now, that actually replaces that fixed interest part of your portfolio, loaning it to your children. And in effect, you'll actually get a better rate of return than you would anyway, wouldn't you? Because you take away the middle person, so you take away the bank. So the bank, if I've got money in the bank and they might give me 0.5%, they might charge out to you at 3.5%. So the bank's making that margin, whereas here, if you just got the mum and dad doing it, they can compress it, so it's a better situation for you and it's a better situation for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And what about I did like that story you told me, Mike, about your friend who bought a place, and he actually rented out a room, like on Airbnb, and effectively paid his mortgage. Yeah.
So you're seeing that more commonly, especially in places where there's such a big demand for rental properties, and also rent's quite high. To get a home on your own as well. So we're seeing it quite commonly now. People renting out rooms, even individually. So there's a house we heard of near a uni campus. We can't give away exactly where, but they were renting out 6 different rooms individually for kind of $200 to $300 each. So you see that they're actually making really good money. Something a bit outside the square, and I don't think it lasted too long because there wasn't quite the approvals in place for it. But
and we did also know of someone who was actually renting a property in the city, and it was actually a commercial building illegally when they had a reception area in the middle of their area. So there is some things going on, unfortunately, that this housing shortage has caused. And we had a fellow that we worked with for a while, and he lived in a share house in the suburbs where he had approximately 20 people living in there, and they had cardboard walls and things. It was till it was shut down by the council. It was it's pretty stressful out there for a lot of people, and I think we need to. I suppose my thoughts as someone who bought a house a long time ago is you've really got to sort of think outside the square in terms of what can you do, and part of that is, sort of when interest rates are really low, locking in your rate, paying back as much of the non-deductible debt as you can, thinking about how you can potentially increase your income in a really tax-effective way, and sort of just being very proactive with what you do, because once you've got equity in your home, it opens up a world of possibilities to go into other ventures. So whether it's an investment property, whether it's a business, or anything like that. So there's a lot to think about, a lot to digest there, Michael, aren't there?
There is.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.